Today's adventure will be an automotive tutorial on how to replace the tail light bulbs in a 2014 to 2016 Nissan Rogue. In this video, I will be working on a 2015 Nissan Rogue SL edition. Some things you'll need for this project. 1 is a socket set. 2 is replacement bulbs. 3 is optional but highly recommended, a magnetic dish, so as you're taking out the screws, you have somewhere for them to go. And about 10 to 30 minutes of time. As always, the Gobstopper and the Gobstopping Adventures are not responsible for any modifications you do to yours or another person's vehicle. So, first things first, we're going to start with the bolts. We are going to start with the bolts in the trim piece that is above the light housing. So, this is where your magnetic dish comes in handy. If you are using a magnetic dish that I recommended, this is where you throw all of your bolts as you're taking them out into the magnetic dish. And you don't have to worry about losing them, misplacing them, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of these bolts out. Then I am going to gently but firmly pull the trim piece off. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling it straight to me. I'm giving it a slight little wiggle, but I'm not trying to bend it. I'm just there's dirt and all kinds of crud that have gotten in here in the clip. Same thing with this, so it is going to be some friction in there, you know, with all the junk, the Rogue junk that's gotten in the light. You can see it right there, and you can also see the clip. So once you have the light housing out and you have access to the back of it, this is where you will be able to swap out or replace any of the bulbs that need replacing. The reverse, the turn signal, as well as the brake light. In this example, I'm just going to be replacing the brake light. The brake light is what has been burnt out, and so what I'm going to be doing is swapping out both of these bulbs. Right now they're halogen bulbs that are in it, and I'm going to be swapping them out for the LED bulbs. So I did this a while back, so this was probably a couple months ago, and these lights have worked great. They're bright. These lights work really great. I was a little skeptical, but these lights work really great.
No, I'm done.
So I did get these lights off of Amazon. I want to say they were 25 bucks. So here's where we're just going to pop the actual brake light out, replace it, and it is recommended not to actually put your hands and the oils from your hands and your fingers on the actual bulb. I'm not sure why that is. That's just something I've always heard working on lights, especially automotive lights. I don't know why, but that is something I've always heard. If you guys know why, drop it down in the comments. I'm actually really curious. Like I said, it's something I've always heard. It makes the lights last longer by not putting your oils from your hands on the bulb. But anyway, so after we get it swapped out, all we're going to do is put the light housing back in, attach it with the bolts, and then we are going to move up to the trim piece and attach the trim piece. So at this point, it's literally just reverse order of what we just did. And something that I like to do is just to wipe things off. There's no telling when this will get seen again. So typically I would be a little bit more thorough, especially if this was my car. I would be a lot more thorough, and I would clean all of that dirt that's gotten in there just from the road and rain and weather. I would clean that a little bit better, but it's not that big of a deal, and I do anticipate on having to come back in a couple months to replace the other two bolts. I don't know how long they're going to last, because these are the stock bulbs that have been in it as far as I know. I am the second owner of this vehicle, so we'll see. But I do anticipate on having to come back and swap those out. So at that time, when I have a little bit more time, I'll be a little bit more thorough and really wipe things out and clean things out. So now we're going to move on to the other side, and it's the exact same thing that we did on the passenger side. All we're going to do is we're going to take out all the bolts, we're going to toss them right into our magnetic dish. Then from there, we are going to gently pop out the trim piece up top. And I do want to clarify that I am just pulling straight back. I know with the way that my hands are grabbing it, it may look a little weird, as if I'm trying to push or bend it in a certain way. I'm not. I'm pulling it straight back. Same thing with the light. There are clips on both of these, both the trim piece and the light housing. You don't want to bend it away from the side of the vehicle. You want to pull it straight back. If that doesn't make sense, drop me a line down in the comments and I'll try to clear that up. But you're just pulling all the components straight backwards. So now that we have access to the back, we're just going to swap the bulbs. And as I said earlier, the only bulbs that I am swapping are the actual brake light bulbs. And if you notice, one thing I'm not doing, I'm trying not to put my hand all over the actual bulbs themselves up top. The actual LED diodes, or whatever you call them. I don't know if LEDs are the same as far as halogen bulbs, where you're not supposed to touch them. I don't know. Anyway. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get everything back in place, and then we're going to start screwing everything back in. Now, I do recommend doing what I'm doing here, and that is starting all of the bolts by hand. And the reason for that is, if you've ever worked on any kind of machined parts, especially machined bolts or machined fittings where the bolts screw into, if there's very small tolerances. So with that being said, if you start it by hand, you can feel that it's actually going in, where if you're screwing it in with the socket or a driver, then you may not feel that it's not going in perfect. And so what you could end up doing is stripping out the bolt or stripping out the hole. And just to change the brake light, we don't want to do it. We don't want to have to, actually fix stuff here. We're just swapping a brake light. So start the bolts by hand. You won't have to worry about stripping out the holes or the bolts themselves. Once you have all of them somewhat hand tight or finger tight, then go back with the socket or some type of driver and tighten them up. So now that we have this piece back in, we are going to test it out. Looks good. So if you found this video informative, helpful, interesting, be sure to like, subscribe, stay tuned for more.